Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the Q&A show, a show where we distill years of our experience and expertise in e-learning to offer you best practices, tips and tricks that actually work. Hi everyone, my name is Pranjale Lahri. I am the AVP Marketing at Upside LMS and with me today is Rajesh Shintre. Rajesh is the AVP Client Relationships at Upside LMS and he oversees all of the training, tech support and client relationship operations. Rajesh, if you can quickly address the audience, we'll get started.
Yeah. Thank you, Pranjali. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon for the clients in the Europe region. This is Rajesh Shintre. I work as AVP for client relationships, and in fact, my expertise includes learning and development, and of course, technology, which has been on the run this year. So we are going to have an interesting session ahead. Thank you.
With that, we'll get started with question number one that you sent us. I'm just going to read out to all of us so we have the context. It is rethinking investment in learn tech. How can we adapt to the changing times faster and better? It's a very relevant question, Rajesh. Do you want to get started with it?
Yeah, Pranjali, thanks for that. See, basically, just to answer this, this question, let me go a little bit of back to this because for any company, because first thing that the company needs to do is if they are rethinking investment on learning and tech, they have to revisit the company culture because sometimes the organization culture and the way the L&D team connects with the employees and because unless these two things gel up, they are not going to convey what exactly is the business need. Because without a business need, making them aware about their processes and stuff like that won't help actually. So this, in fact, would lead to something like data based on their years of experience, like the L&D team have been doing it for their employees. Based on that, there would be a data analytics, and on that, there would be a learning curve which will help them, revisit the curve here. Now, one thing that we have to realize is the pace at which this year has been gone around. The content, the way employees used to look at the content has been very dynamic actually because they are wanting a lot of things to be done. Yeah. So, as a strategy, you would need to understand, you would need to identify some tools which would help you to identify those gaps and incorporate it and try to incorporate them within your existing, content. Again, we would also talk about something like, maintaining your content and, just versioning that. And a few things which again would also help is learning by weaving, which has been on the go this year because most of the people, and as we all know that we have been not in a face-to-face in discussion with our trainers. Actually, it is more of learning by weaving. Actually, is one of the things that is on the base this. I think redesigning learning path, then constructing the end-to-end delivery path, which earlier was more of like people used to do it once in a year or maybe once in 2 years. This has to go away and it has to be more dynamic. Like, what is happening now? What is the need of the employee? And as I said at the start of the session, that unless the L&D team works with their employees, making them understand what is the business need, this revisits would need to continue. Yeah.
Absolutely. What I hear you say, Rajesh, is the key terms on business agility, and I'll just start off with that point. So, software development traditionally has been linked to agility. We all know of agile development models, and I think what COVID did for most of us is it brought agility mainstream in all of our lives, and learning and development included. And what it really means is how flexible and how responsive are we to the changing times and changing technologies, even the changing environment, and adapt to it faster. Traditionally, I think pre-COVID era, if you really have to see how we operated our L&D, it was more chop, lift, and then you start with it. Essentially, what it really meant is your training programs, which is the long training programs, you could easily chop them into smaller chunks. You could stagger them across whatever duration you wanted, and everyone was happy. Your employees had a good holistic training programs, and you also had the training checked off on your calendars. What COVID did for us is it took away the physical component, which meant everything had to transition online. And along with that online transition, you also had a factor which came in play, which is how fast can you make this change happen. There is this very interesting study I read recently. It's by Accenture and it's called Thriving by Disruption. Essentially, it talks about how most industries and almost every function in every industry is going to be affected and is going to be disrupted because of all the changes that you're seeing in the environment now. There are some takeaways to that study which I think apply beautifully to the question that was asked: how do you adapt faster and better? The four takeaways. The first takeaway of that study is that when you have to look upon other people in your industry, or you compare yourself to other players in the industry, while you can learn from them, don't try to emulate them blindly. Everything that you do and decide as a part of your change management process has to be specific to your needs today and where you want to go in the future. The second takeaway from that study is you have to empower your employees as a part of this entire development. So communicate with them often, whatever changes that you're thinking about in terms of learning, in terms of development training, ensure they're a part and parcel of this study. I'll go a step ahead and add to it by saying that you may also want to empower your learners to take that seat in the driver's seat in the training journey. Essentially what that means is you need to empower them with the right content, with the right learning platform, with the right training material, so they know where to take their journey, in which direction, as and when needed. The last takeaway, which I think is very relevant, I will skip the third takeaway, is that you have to start, even if it means you're not fully ready for the journey. Your adoption to the entire process needs to start maybe with small steps, right? It even means experimenting, it even means failing, but it means that you need to start today so that you're able to achieve and get in line with the adoption and the technology changes as and when needed. Those are my 2 cents, and with that I will move on to question number 2. The second question is, with the rise of AI and ML, how can we bring more humanness in employee L&D in the coming year? Very, very nice question. I like that they have compared AI and ML to the technology part, and they're asking about the humanness in employee L&D. Rajesh, would you want to take this?
Yeah. Before we come to the AI and the ML part, which has been on, it has been a need for an improvisation. So before that, let's go back, step back, and try to understand what has been the traditional way of, the course which has been evolved, the curriculums which has been evolved. So traditionally, what used to happen is, most of these L&D managers, the post the session, post the training is conducted, there used to be a feedback session onto a particular course and how the course has been doing, whether there has been an interest among the end users and all that. So this was based on what the instructor was, saying it, whereas the feedback from the learners has always been onto the, it has been kind of biased over there, right? So what has happened and this has continued for a very long period of time. This year, we have actually seen people trying to use AI, then the machine learning. Again, it has been this technology has been into this in the space for the last 8-10 years, and the L&D actually trying to use it has been very scarce actually. But whereas now what we are seeing is people wanting to use it. Now how they are trying to use it is, one is as I said, the feedback was more on based on a session which was conducted recently. So if I want to have feedback which was just maybe 3 or 4 years back, in that case, I'm not going to go through the files or through the feedback and all that. That's where your AI is going to be very handy over there. It is going to help you with the data which has been compiled for the last 8 to 10 years or whatever. And that will help you to come up with some sort of, pattern. It will help you to recognize a pattern. Now, what I mean by pattern is, it is like, the end user is going to share you some feedback. He's going to share you feedback saying that, okay, this content was not good, or there was, I expected more information on this. With the advent of technology and with AI, and again, we are going to come to and look at how the machine learning can be a part of that. So using AI, what I'm doing is I'm trying to match the data, trying to understand what has been the pattern. If the pattern is, if for specific areas, if you feel the pattern is not matching, maybe they can redo that particular course over there. Yeah, this would give you, and the statistics is essentially needed for you to regenerate your courses and all that. that leads to essentially, like, there has been new trends which has been coming in, like on the job learning, like just in time, then personalized learning and micro learning. Because when we are talking about micro learning, that is where your machine learning is going to be very handy. It is going to help you with each and every inputs over there. Here we are not talking about a human interface, or it's a technology which is going to give you inputs to the L&D people, and it's going to help you draw some sort of a heat map and decide you onto the learning path. Yeah. So overall, for me, it has, like, for AI, you need to have some sort of data, and for a machine, you would need to restudy the micro learning aspects of the training over there.
Got it. My comments on the same would be, see, I don't think it's just AI and ML which has really changed the face of learning and development or anything in particular, right? That we're talking about is that overall thrust that has been brought about by digital transformation, which happened post COVID, which has not just made us physically dispersed in terms of how we work and how we communicate and how we even learn. It has made us socially contained in the four walls of our houses. It has also connected us digitally in some form and shape. Just interestingly, yesterday I heard a L&D leader say that they should have labeled social distancing as physical distancing. And the reason for this is because at the end of the day, we are social creatures. As much as we think that we are able to thrive by ourselves individually, we still need people to connect, collaborate, and communicate with. So when you talk of getting humanness or humanizing your online training, there are three things that I can quickly just share off the bat that come to my mind. One is the element of UGC, or social learning and knowledge collaboration. Because everything that we're talking about now is highly digitally contained and highly digitally conducted, I think getting that element where you can have your learners speak among themselves, share their knowledge, because as we know it, most learning happens informally, and while there is formal training, there is assigned training. A chunk of that is something that happens much informally in all different settings. So one is, how can you incorporate social learning and knowledge collaboration as a part of your learning? It could be as a part of your learning platform itself, but you can think of myriad ways in which you can do the same. The second is learner-centric journeys. So essentially, you have to get super personalized. We have been speaking of hyper-personalization. I think this is the time to really think how you can make it very personalized to your learners, so it's not just contextualized, it's very relevant to them for what they need today and what they need tomorrow. Linked to that is behavior-based learning paths, which is essentially how can you study the behavior of your learners? Is there a certain format that they typically like to consume content is? How much time do they log in? Are they using their mobile devices? And based on the behaviors and the analytics that you get off it, you can then map the new learning journey so that you're able to talk to them in a language that they understand and meet them where they already are, instead of really taking them out of their normal comfort zones and asking them to do a learning study. An interesting point which I think I could quickly add to this is a checklist of seeing if you are able to add humanness to your training programs is to use the principles that UDL offers to us, which is Universal Design of Learning. There are three key principles that it offers. First is you have to provide multiple means of engagement. Now, most people, or rather some people, may like to work in solitary mode just by themselves, but some like to have collaborations and communication between different groups. So you need to identify that, but you need to provide different multiple means of engagement. Second is, how can you provide multiple means of representation? Now, representation means that people have different likes and dislikes. Some may have accessibility issues, so you need to take all of this into consideration when you design your training programs. And the last is you need to provide multiple means of action and expression, which means after I have consumed the training, are you giving me equal opportunities to share my feedback? I think this is something that Rajesh, you were trying to highlight. How can you have the course feedbacks? How can you have the polls, the surveys, so that your learners are able to voice their opinions and you're able to map and carve out the learning journeys aligned to their likes and expectations? I will move on to question number 3. Rajesh, the question for us is, what can we learn from the hits and misses of our content strategy of this year and do course corrections for the next? Very interesting. Yes, Rajesh.
Within a year of learning, I would say, and in fact, like all these years of what all things we have been doing on learning and development, this year has been a year of trying to innovate ourselves. So the misses, I would say, the kind of miss that we have seen has been over the years, and this year has been more prominent, and we are able to see that while training was more of forced, like this was kind of an activity which we have been doing in the past as well, because you have been given a set of trainings to complete, and as a part of your training calendar, so you need to complete it. So it was kind of a forced. So the thought process that went behind it, because as long as you are facing your trainers, or if you are in an office kind of an environment, there would be some sort of an interaction that would happen. But now what is happening is you're totally cut off. You have been given your desktop or your device or your laptop, and you have been asked to go through the training actually. And that's where this year the major concern, or I would say the kind of miss that has been the low participation. A person learns, but he's just learning. He's not undergoing any sort of a learning which is needed for him to execute his task better. It was just that he's completing his number of hours over there, and that's it. That also led to whether the investment that was done onto the particular course or onto that particular platform is viable, like whether it was really good to invest in that. Or again, this were some of the criteria that came up essentially in this year, because the kind of motivation that if a person undergoes some sort of a training and if it helps him, there is over there. Whereas this year the motivation level has actually dropped in, actually, because you are not able to generate that kind of an interest. uh, the flip side of it, that is where we have been, the innovations have happened is like, there have been companies which have been, trying to push forth a content wherein the learner participation is there, right? So as an employee, when I'm, undergoing a particular training, so instead of me completing the entire program, I have been given an option, just to think about that, the concept, elaborate my thoughts over it. And now this is a kind of a new thing that we are going to see in the years to come now, but it actually makes the person motivated because he is engaged in the training. Second is the use of simulations, actually, because especially for the manufacturing unit, what has happened is all these years there are processes, you have to undergo a set of processes, you have to go through a series of steps over there. Now with the use of simulation, it is something like, I am trying to execute a particular task in hand. What I do is, instead of just going through the theoretical aspect of it, I'm actually seeing it. What I'm doing is, I'm not only I'm learning it, but I'm executing that task. That gives me a motivation, because not only it helps me understand the concept, but secondly, it will also make me realize how the real environment is going to be. Third, and the most important thing is, like as I said, like the changes that has been is the change in strategy. The change in strategy has been specifically for skill based. Like earlier, it was more like one course for all. Now that is not going to help this year, and we have seen that in most of the organizations. Like basic communication is fine, but when we want to have a superior kind of a communication needed, that's where the content has been at the receiving end, because there are no contents available. So you need to have a plethora kind of kind of huge kind of data available to you, where you can decide what is the content. Now again, this needs to be done on your skill, this again needs to be done on your competency. So these are some of the aspects that I feel have been the hits and the misses. Again, the learning has been, as I said, it has been a year of evolution. While worldwide on the health front, it has been a disaster. But in the learning and development space, it has really taken up. I would say what we have done for the last 10 years, this year we have actually tried to use and leverage the technology, try to use the knowledge that we have, try to use the skills that we have to, enhance the learning skills. So the learning has been, redesign the learning, you can say the learning pattern, the learning path, then the use of artificial intelligence, or you can say the use of technology, uh, participation, which I felt in earlier, like in most of the, like only in the classroom session where the participation was there. Now it is more of, you're trying to, embed your knowledge and you're making the employee help you, redesign that particular courses, which was more of, theoretical concepts. Number of slides were just increasing. That has come down. So that has also led to something like customizing your e-learning. So again, there some tools will be much more, handy over there. Use of simulations, I have already said. And last and the least is, this year it is like, as L&D people, we have been able to train people, but this year it is the learners who have trained us actually. So this has been a fantastic year in that case. Like,
You covered everything so beautifully, Rajesh, and I don't think I have anything more to add, but I'll just hone in on one key topic, which I think is very relevant to us, especially because we spoke about ILT and us transitioning to a e-learning or a self-paced format. So in an ILT setup, the success of a training session was largely hinged on the facilitator or the instructor. So there was a good chance that because of his or her captivating abilities, ability to engage the audience, the training was a smooth sail for all of us. And in the self-paced e-learning format, now there is everything just really rides on the learning design. So you no longer can just wing it and hope that your learners don't notice the ID approach is used or not used in it. So I think it's critical for us to give that due attention to learning design every single time that you're putting a course together. Please, I think it's important to ensure that it is localized, it is relevant to your audiences, it resonates with their pain points, and it is personalized to their requirements. So from a facilitator-centric training approach, I'll say we are moving to a more learner-centric training approach. That's one. And when you think of learning design, you definitely need it to be hyper-focused. So you can't really have too many topics crammed into everything into one small nugget, because that small nugget, because we are also digitally fatigued throughout the day, we are working on machines throughout the day, we are taking our calls and everything through a digital medium. We need to be very mindful of how the content is structured, which is oftentimes micro, as Rajesh said too, and we definitely need it very personalized to our learners. With that, we are at the end of our time, but Rajesh, before I let you go, sorry about that, there was some error. Before I let you go, Rajesh, I always ask my guest a question. And for you, my question is, I know you have multiple hobbies, but one that deeply fascinates me is your hobby of collecting fountain pens. So I want to ask you, when did this start? Why fountain pens? And if you can just tell us something about that.
thanks for asking, Pranjali. Really appreciate it. Fountain pens, like, this hobby started way back when I was in my fourth standard, actually, when I was doing my schooling in Mumbai. And like the initial days, like, like, I'm sure most of the small kids do. They have very difficulty in writing, actually, because nowadays you're using gel pens or you're using ball pens. So what happens is, like, you are not able to, write it properly, because the ink is very fluid in that case. So using fountain pen, and because the nib is there, so it helps you to, because in being from a convent school, it was a mandate for us to write in cursive languages, and that's where the kind of love started. That, and very proud to have a lot of fountain pens. Of course, I'm not going to tell how much fountain pens I've got, but yes, it has been a fantastic. And even today, I still follow that. There has been a drastic change. Like, you don't get inks now. This is again something that for me, like, I always try to get in the fountain pen inks, and then I keep writing for that. So it started off with a habit which I was not able to write properly, but then using something which helped me to reach my goal, actually.
That's absolutely awesome. Rajesh, I really hope you continue your hobby. And thank you everyone for making the time and joining us for the session. Join us next time on 18 December, same time, same place, for more insights with a new guest. Until then, let's keep the conversation going on Upside LMS LinkedIn and Twitter. Send in your questions by adding hashtag AUALMS. That's Ask Us Anything LMS to your tweet or your LinkedIn post. Thank you so much and have a great evening ahead.